Hey, what's up everyone? Thanks for clicking on the video. Really means a lot to me. I appreciate all the support. So I recently had someone ask me in the comments section, what are some stocks that I think will be big plays on artificial intelligence in the future? Now, in my personal opinion, I feel like a lot of my favorite tech stocks are valued a bit high at the moment, so I think it's reasonable to expect a healthy correction at some point, and that's kind of what I'm looking forward to myself. But even at these levels, I still feel like the stocks that we're going to talk about in today's video are worth being on your watch list because they have a ton of future potential, especially when looking at artificial intelligence and the key roles that I believe they will play. So in today's video, we're going to take a look at 4 stocks that I think will be big plays on the future of artificial intelligence over the long term. And the way I'm going to structure the video is we will take a look at 2 data related stocks that I think can fuel artificial intelligence, 1 chip stock that I think can power artificial intelligence, and then 1 infrastructure and software related stock that I think can facilitate a lot of the artificial intelligence in the future. Now, when looking at the market, AI is expected to fuel enormous growth in various different kind of subcategories as well. So when looking at machine learning, deep learning, automation, autonomy, programming, computer chips, the data center, the Internet of Things, I mean, the list really goes on. But overall, Gartner Research estimates that AI-derived business value will grow from around $1 trillion in 2018 to nearly $4 trillion by 2022, and that it will be the most disruptive class of technologies over the next decade. So obviously this is going to be a very big deal. Let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and start the countdown with stock number 4. And by the way, I will leave you timestamps down below in case you need them. All I ask is that you please hit the like button if you enjoy the video, as it really helps support the channel. But starting things off with stock number 4, we're gonna go with a data related stock. And when looking at data, there's really no other company out there that I think controls the most amount of data than Google. Ticker symbol is GOOG or GOOGL, depending on which one you want to buy. And this is actually a stock that I used to own myself, but I eventually sold out of it. And I've been looking for an opportunity to buy back in, but I have yet to pull the trigger on this stock yet. Now, advancements in cloud computing are going to be critical for the development of artificial intelligence, and this is where Google has been investing heavily to expand their Google Cloud infrastructure, which operates in a market that was worth over $26 billion just in the last quarter alone, having grown by nearly 40% year over year. And this is actually during a time where cloud growth has been a little bit weaker than normal because of the weakening global economy and the trade war, and so companies have had much tighter budgets and they haven't been spending as much. But Google was still able to grow during the quarter and keep their 3rd place ranking of global market share, only behind Amazon and Microsoft, which by the way are my 2 largest stocks in my portfolio. In any case, Google is also investing in artificial intelligence through several subsidiary companies that are heavily centered around AI. In healthcare, Google companies like Verily, Calico, and especially DeepMind, which Google acquired back in 2014, beating out rival Facebook for around $500 million, are working to improve healthcare data, diagnose and even predict possible illnesses and diseases before they even happen, perform robotic surgeries with the same accuracy as doctors, and even try to figure out new ways of extending human lives. And when it comes to AI, data is absolutely king, and it could certainly be argued that Google is able to collect the most data out of any other company in the world, considering that they not only sell smart speakers with Google Assistant that is also used in most smartphones because they also own Android, but they're also the world leader of internet search with Google at over 92% market share, internet browsing with Chrome at 63% market share, mobile operating systems with Android at 76% market share, and even if you include desktop computers and laptops, Android even beats out Windows at 40% versus 35%, which is pretty crazy. Not to mention that they're even working on autonomous driving with Waymo that has already collected over 10 billion miles of simulated autonomous driving data. I believe it's over 10 million in real world data, but they're doing multiple tests across the country, and this is a business that will help them compete in a market that is projected to be worth over $500 billion by 2026, growing at a compound annual growth rate of almost 40%, according to Allied Market Research, which is a huge deal. Now, just a few months ago, the stock was trading for about $1,000 a share, and it's been climbing ever since. So waiting for a pullback probably makes sense. I think a lot of people are kind of waiting for that. Although even at these prices, you're still talking about a forward P ratio of only 21. I know that seems high, but this is a company that is insanely profitable, doing over $30 billion of net income last year, and is still growing their sales by pretty close to 20% a year. So over the long term, and especially when looking at the advancements of artificial intelligence, I think Google is going to be one of the best stock market investments out there for the long term, even at these prices, because I really think that Google is the sort of king of data, and I think that that's going to be a key ingredient to fueling artificial intelligence in the future. Alright guys, moving on to stock number 3, we're going to stick with another data play, but we're actually going to fly over to China. And when looking for an artificial intelligence company out in China, there's really no company that stands out more to me, especially when looking at data, than the sort of Chinese version of Google, and that is of course Baidu. Ticker symbol is BIDU, coming in at stock number 3. Now, Baidu is currently down over 50% in the past 5 years, but most of that pain came recently as their stock has been cut by more than half just in the past year alone. This is because of investments in IQ, which is also known as the sort of Netflix of China, that is losing them tons of money because of the high costs associated with creating and acquiring content, very similar to the struggles that Netflix is facing. But what's had an even bigger impact is the weakening Chinese economy that is in its worst conditions in decades, and therefore many Chinese stocks have actually been hurt really bad, and Chinese companies are actually not spending as much money on advertising as they used to, which is where companies like Google and Baidu bring in the majority of the revenue. So that's had a real bad impact on Baidu. In fact, their sales and profits have been getting crushed. This year, the revenue is expected to actually decline by about 1% before returning to growth of over 13% next year, while their EPS is also expected to crash by over 50% this year before recovering the year after, according to Yahoo Finance. As a result, the valuation is still pretty high at over 15 forward because things just aren't improving fast enough for their business, and the macroeconomy is still struggling because of the trade war kind of lingering on. However, there are still reasons to think that Baidu may be cheap at this time, given their long-term prospects and assuming that the trade war gets resolved and the Chinese economy recovers over the longer term. For one, Baidu is the largest search provider in China with over 65% market share in desktop and 71% market share in mobile as of the start of this year. That, coupled with their DuerOS platform that is the sort of Chinese version of Google Assistant or Amazon Alexa that grew its installed base by around 350% last quarter to over 400 million, is helping them collect enormous amounts of valuable data that can also fuel artificial intelligence. In fact, Baidu continues to invest heavily and grow their patent application in areas of AI, machine learning, and deep learning, having now become the only Chinese internet company to be listed among the top 30 AI patent applicants in the world, and they're even a big player in cloud computing with their Baidu Cloud platform that has now reached a top 3 ranking in China. Meanwhile, digital ad spending in China is growing at a 20% clip, with nearly 2/3 of all media ad spending going to digital mediums, so when the Chinese economy improves, it's almost guaranteed that Baidu will benefit greatly. And as if all of these comparisons to Google weren't enough, Baidu is working on their own autonomous driving platform with Apollo and has already begun testing China's very first robo-taxi fleet, something that is definitely worth keeping a close eye on, considering that the ride-hailing market in China is expected to almost double to nearly $100 billion in revenue in just a few years, according to a new report from Statista. So yes, Baidu is absolutely a struggling company at this time, and with the trade war continuing to weaken the Chinese economy, it doesn't look like things are going to improve anytime soon. However, over the longer term, don't be surprised if the story has completely changed for Baidu and that they command a dominant presence in artificial intelligence, especially in China. Alright guys, so we've now covered 2 data-related stocks that I think can fuel artificial intelligence. Let's now transition to one chip stock or a semiconductor stock that I think can power artificial intelligence. And when looking at the semiconductor kind of space, there's really no chip stock out there that I think commands a more dominant presence in artificial intelligence already and still has enormous potential in the future. And that is, of course, NVIDIA. Ticker symbol is NVDA, coming in at stock number 2. Now, in the past 5 years, the stock has absolutely soared, climbing by over 800%. However, more recently, and mostly due to the cryptocurrency crash and a couple of other business mistakes like charging too much money for ray tracing technologies that weren't really being used enough, NVIDIA has been on the decline, down over 40% from their 52-week high, although it's been in recovery mode so far this year, already up by close to 30%. Needless to say, the stock has been kind of all over the place and very controversial, so most investors are divided. I happen to own the stock myself, but I purchased most of it around the start of this year when it was considerably cheaper. Fast forward to today though, and the valuation looks a bit rich at a forward P ratio of almost 25. That's pretty high considering that the crypto crash has led to the revenue crashing from 21% growth last year to negative 8% growth this year. However, that's expected to recover next year and return to their normal positive growth of around 20%. So there's a lot of optimism that the company will recover in a big way. Well, when looking at the future, the rise of artificial intelligence and high performance computing will likely be a major catalyst, as NVIDIA estimates that their data center total addressable market will be around $50 billion by 2025. Pretty crazy considering that they only did less than $3 billion in data center revenue last year. The optimism is also because NVIDIA has GPUs that are specifically made for artificial intelligence that continue to break new records every year, while their newest acquisition of an Israeli semiconductor specialist called Mellanox Technologies should keep the growth coming in the future. By the way, at $7 billion, that was their largest acquisition in history, and it even beat out both Intel and Microsoft, who were also trying to acquire Mellanox for similar reasons. At the same time, NVIDIA is making a big push to power smart cities, which are likely to be the future where everything is connected and AI makes cities both smarter and safer. This is done through a large number of sensors that capture enormous amounts of data, and NVIDIA believes that their GPUs will be the fastest and most efficient in the market to process all of it. By the way, Allied Market Research estimates that this market could be worth over $2.4 trillion by 2025, so that's another enormous growth catalyst for NVIDIA in the future. And speaking of enormous growth catalysts, ARK Invest estimates that revenue for autonomous vehicle platform providers may reach $2 trillion within the next decade, and guess who's a major player in that market as well? Yup, NVIDIA, with already over 370 different partnerships ranging from self-driving cars and semi-trucks to mapping software and detection sensors and more. So this should be another area of potential growth considering that they only brought in $640 million of auto-related revenue last year, leaving plenty of more upside potential in the future. By the way, they also pay out a very small but high growth dividend as well that has a ton of room to keep growing in the future. So when people ask me why do I continue to hold on to NVIDIA given that my position has climbed quite a bit already, the answer I give is that it's because it's a very long-term dividend growth stock for me that I think will command a dominant presence in artificial intelligence, and I want to be a part of that. So that's why I remain invested in NVIDIA. Alright guys, so we've now covered 2 data-related stocks that I think can fuel artificial intelligence, 1 chip stock that I think can power artificial intelligence. Let's now transition to the last stock of the day, coming in at stock number 1, an infrastructure and software-related stock that I think will absolutely be one of the largest facilitators of artificial intelligence in the future over the long term. And this happens to also be my largest investment in my portfolio. And of course, you guys know who that is. That is Microsoft. Ticker symbol is MSFT, coming in at AI stock number 1. As you guys know, I've been buying Microsoft for a pretty long time, mostly at well below $100 a share, and there's no way to sugarcoat this. The stock has absolutely soared this year, climbing by over 30% year to date and almost 200% in the past 5 years. So most investors would argue that the valuation is too expensive at this time. And I can't really argue with that, as I haven't been adding to my position in quite a while, given that they have a forward PE ratio of over 22 and it's already my largest stock. So I don't really see the need to raise my cost basis when there's really no pullback to take advantage of, at least not yet. However, if there's a couple stocks out there that I think deserve to always have a rich valuation, my vote would probably go to Microsoft, and only behind Amazon, who happens to also be my second largest stock. When you consider how absolutely massive Microsoft is, doing over $125 billion in revenue last year and is still expected to grow by double-digit rates in each of the next 2 years, while their EPS is also expected to climb by double-digit rates as well, it starts to make the old adage true of you get what you pay for. Now, of course, much of this growth will come from artificial intelligence. Not only does Microsoft own the largest desktop operating system out there that powers nearly all computers at nearly 80% market share, but they also own the second largest cloud platform in the world in Microsoft Azure at over 18% market share, only behind Amazon's AWS. However, Azure is actually growing at an enormously faster rate at over 63% growth versus AWS at only 36% growth, which is something that I rarely see anybody even mention. That's likely due to the diverse portfolio of services that Microsoft offers, making it easier to have your entire company running on Microsoft products and services. But when looking at AI specifically, their cloud platform may be the biggest in the world for running AI software like Azure Cognitive Services and Azure Machine Learning, just to name a couple. These are heavily used for data preparation, object and language recognition, advanced analytics, and machine learning. And thanks to their open source approach to many of their services and platforms and the recent acquisition of GitHub, Microsoft is arguably the largest home to developers in the world, where they will develop and program much of the AI software and applications of the future. And since we talked so much about autonomous driving already, I might as well add that Microsoft's products and services through Azure and their connected vehicle platforms will also play a major role in that market as well. Just like the Internet of Things, autonomous vehicles need to collect and process large amounts of data quickly and also be able to communicate with each other, and that's where Microsoft is using Azure to facilitate a lot of that. They've even helped create virtual environments for developers to test new algorithms and software changes without having to waste large amounts of time and money to test the vehicles in real life. Because of this more supportive approach that Microsoft is taking to autonomy and especially smart mobility, they've been able to secure partnerships with major car companies like Volkswagen, Toyota, BMW, Audi, Daimler, and many more. So again, I see Microsoft as one of the biggest facilitators of AI over the long term. And I think you guys in the future, I think you guys will be surprised to see just how much AI runs through Microsoft, because they also have one of the strongest balance sheets in the entire world. And that's going to really help them continue to fuel investments and more growth in AI. And so I think that's going to be a big deal as well. Now, they also pay out a very nice dividend, so and one that has a lot of potential to keep growing in the future and is already growing. So I also consider Microsoft a very solid dividend growth stock, and it's just one of those companies that I like to just buy on any kind of significant dips, because it's a company that I just really believe in over the long term. Anyway, that does it for my top 4 AI stocks. Let me know if there are any stocks that were on your mind that I happen to have left out. Leave them down below and maybe I'll make a future video on one of those stocks. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, please consider hitting the like button, subscribing if you haven't already. Thank you for all the support. I'll catch you guys in the next one. By the way, there's many great AI stocks out there, so feel free to list any down below. These are just some of my favorite. But anyway, thanks again. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.